All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something brand new, a certification built for this new era of project management. You guessed it, the one that's all about AI. Let's jump in.
So let's kick things off with a big question. One that a lot of project managers are probably wrestling with right now. If you've ever been involved with an AI project, you know they just feel different. They can be way more unpredictable than your standard software build. So what's the deal? Why are they so tricky?
Well, the simple answer? They're just not your typical software project. They're driven by data. They're super iterative, and honestly, they're filled with uncertainty. You can't just slap a traditional waterfall or even your go-to agile method on it and call it a day. Nope. The unique challenges of AI, they demand a completely different playbook.
And building that playbook is exactly the challenge that the Project Management Institute, PMI, is taking on. They've put together a whole methodology and a certification designed specifically to get project managers ready to lead in this new AI-powered world.
Okay, so it's officially called the PMI Certified Professional in Managing AI. Yeah, it's a mouthful, so we'll just call it the PMI CPMAI. The whole idea is to give you that new playbook to prove you've got what it takes to manage the entire life cycle of an AI project, from the first piece of data to final deployment, all while making sure that responsible and trustworthy practices are front and center.
Okay, so what's actually in this playbook? What are we going to learn? The whole certification is structured around 5 core knowledge areas, or what they call domains. Think of these as the key stages on your AI project roadmap, guiding you from that first spark of an idea all the way to a real working solution.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Take a look at how this exam is weighted. Identifying business needs and identifying data needs, together, they make up 52% of the whole exam. I mean, wow, that's a massive signal from PMI, right? They're basically screaming that for AI projects, getting the business problem right and truly understanding your data, that's more than half the battle right there.
And it's not just a random list of topics. These domains flow together in a really logical way, almost like a classic project lifecycle. You kick things off by figuring out the business and data needs. Then you get into building the model. All along the way, you're making sure the AI is trustworthy and responsible. And finally, you launch the thing and set up governance for the long haul. See? It's a complete end-to-end framework.
You know, any successful journey starts with a clear map in the right gear. And for an AI project, that means deeply, deeply understanding the business problem you're trying to solve and carefully evaluating the data you have to work with. This is the absolute foundation for everything that comes next.
So let's be clear. At this point, you're not writing code or building models. You're putting on your detective hat. You're asking the tough questions. What problem are we really trying to solve here? Is AI even the right tool for the job? What data do we actually need? Where can we get it? And most importantly, is it any good? And this right here, this hits on a fundamental truth of AI. You could have the smartest, most powerful algorithm on the planet. But if you're feeding it junk data, data that's inaccurate, incomplete, or all over the place, you're basically building your skyscraper on a foundation of sand. The project is pretty much doomed before you even start.
All right, let's play out a scenario, one that's painfully common and something this certification really prepares you for. Imagine this. Your data science team is popping the champagne. The model hit 94% accuracy. It's a technical masterpiece. But then, a month after you launch, you look at the business numbers and nothing. Crickets. What on earth went wrong?
This, my friends, is the classic model pass, KPI fails scenario. And here's the kicker. The problem usually isn't the model itself. It's almost never about the tech. It's a failure of integration. Maybe the solution wasn't built into the workflow correctly, or users weren't trained, or maybe you just solved the wrong business problem to begin with. It's a powerful lesson. Success is measured in business value, not just technical accuracy.
Okay, so you've laid that rock-solid foundation. You've done the detective work to avoid that model pass, KPI fail trap. Now it's time to actually forge the tool. Now we get to move into building and evaluating the AI model itself. Now, it's super important to remember your role here. As the project manager, you are not expected to be the head data scientist. That's not your job. Your job is to be the conductor of the orchestra, managing the process, keeping an eye on quality, and making sure that what's being built stays perfectly aligned with those business goals you defined at the start.
And a huge piece of managing this stage is getting your head around these concepts of trustworthy AI. Like, for instance, do you really know the difference between explainability and transparency? They sound similar, but they're not. Explainability is micro. Why was this one person's loan application denied? It's about a single decision. Transparency is macro. So how does this loan approval system work in general? Getting these kinds of details right isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely critical when you're talking to stakeholders and regulators.
So, the model's built, it's been tested, it's hitting all its technical marks. Awesome. But, hold on. The journey is not over, not by a long shot. Now comes the real moment of truth. Actually launching this thing and delivering that business value we've been talking about.
And let me tell you, this last part is about way more than just flipping a switch and hoping for the best. We're talking about a carefully managed rollout, constantly keeping an eye on both the technical metrics and those business KPIs, and setting up long-term governance to handle sneaky problems like model drift. You know, that's when the model's performance slowly gets worse over time because the real world changes. This is the stuff that turns a cool science project into a real, sustainable business asset.
Okay, so now you've got the map. You see the 5 domains that will guide you from start to finish. But what about the exam itself? What are the nuts and bolts of actually getting certified? Let's break down the details.
All right, first things first, the numbers. The exam has 120 multiple choice questions. And you're going to have 160 minutes to tackle them. That works out to 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay, but listen up, because this is a really key detail about those questions. Of the 120 questions you'll see, only 100 of them actually count toward your score. The other 20, they're basically test questions that PMI uses to build future exams. So what does that mean for you? It means if you come across a question that seems like it came from outer space, don't panic. Don't let it throw you off your game. It might just be one of those unscored ones.
And I've got some really great news when it comes to who can take this. The barrier to entry is super low, and that's on purpose. You don't need a PMP, you don't need any other certs, you don't even need formal AI experience to get started. There's just one thing you have to do. Complete the official PMI exam prep course. Once you buy that, the clock starts, and you have a full year to prep and pass.
So when you boil it all down, the PMI CPMAI isn't just another certification to hang on your wall. It's a structured, repeatable game plan designed for this wild, complex world of AI. It gives you the map, it gives you the playbook, so you can walk into these projects with confidence and actually deliver real value. So now you have the map. The only question left is, what are you going to build?